Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we've got your Week 16 start and sit video for the wide receiver position. We are now in round 2 of your fantasy playoffs. Some of you may be starting this week, but most of you are probably round 2, so there's a lot of great fantasy football playoffs left. Again, wide receiver always can be a challenge because you've got so many great options to put in there. And hopefully this video helps you guys get some clarity. And of course, you can always hit us up in the comments down below to help you with those questions and those tough lineup sit and start questions. So if you haven't already, check out our start and sit video for the quarterback and running back. And again, if you have questions, let us know. Now, these are your obvious wide receivers you should be putting in your lineup here. Again, without question, or they just have great matchups. These wide receivers are in a solid spot to perform. These are typically your wide receiver ones or players that have an upside for wide receiver one. Now, the first wide receiver I'm going to recommend as a good start this week is going to be Garrett Wilson versus the Commanders. Look, Commanders aren't great against the pass. This is a great matchup for Garrett Wilson this week. Commanders in the last 2 games have allowed 4 touchdowns to the wide receiver, which is crazy. Now, of course, you're dealing with quarterback play like Zach Wilson, who did have to leave last week, but is back. We're expected to be back this week. So there is that. But Commanders are allowing 23.3 points to wide receiver. Garrett Wilson's averaging about 10 targets a game, which again, being force-fed that many opportunities only helps Garrett Wilson have a chance to have really good high wide receiver 2 with some low wide receivers 1 upside, especially in this matchup where, again, Commanders are vulnerable. They're not great against the pass. I like this one for him. Now, another wide receiver I like this week is going to be Calvin Ridley versus the Bucs. Look, the battle of the Florida teams is going to be a fun one, right? Both teams are fighting for their division, continuously trying to make sure they are atop their respective divisions to have a chance in the playoffs. With that said, if this is going to be a game where Trevor Lawrence does get cleared due to his concussion protocol, I like Ridley this week. Look, Bucs aren't great against the pass. Right now, they're allowing an average of 20.4 points a game. Ridley has seen 25 targets in the last 2 games, so he's getting force-fed ever since Christian Kirk went down for his injury. And again, he's expected out at least 2 to 3 more games. So Ridley's going to see very similar options of targets, 10 to 12 targets a game. So the opportunities are there. And Ridley last week should have had a good fantasy outing for most of you, and you probably lost because of something so simple where he had a touchdown, but they called it back saying it did not actually count. So again, had that been called, Ridley had a great game last week. Unfortunately, he didn't have as good as he should have had, but I do like this one for Ridley. Another receiver I like is DK Metcalf versus the Titans. Geno should be back this week. There hasn't been an official announcement, but he is getting back into practice. So that I think actually gives value to Metcalf because the last couple of games with Drew Lock, Metcalf's done okay. He's about 12 to 13 points a game, which is all right, but he's not seeing a lot of targets. Only 4 to 6 targets a game. Not enough for him to have some success. Metcalf definitely needs to be force-fed to options. And again, great matchup. Titans are allowing a touchdown per game. They're allowing 20.5 points a game. So this is where I think Metcalf has a really good, solid wide receiver 2 with some low wide receiver 1 upside, just because you're getting a guy like Geno Smith back, force-feeding Metcalf at least some opportunities and maybe a possible score. Now, the first receiver I'm sitting is Nico Collins versus the Browns. Having another week without Stroud hurts, like big time. That definitely affects this team. And with that said, Nico is also dealing with his own injuries, dealing with a calf injury. He's missed the last 2 games. He has limited practice, so has Noah Brown. So both the receivers are dealing with some injuries that could potentially give them an opportunity to miss. I do expect Nico to play. Nothing's been ruled out completely yet, but if he does play, this is a tough one. Browns are only allowing 13.1 points a game to wide receivers, and realistically, Nico's going to need targets his way to have some type of success. I just don't feel comfortable without Stroud there. I just don't think he's going to get it. Case Keenum's okay, but he's not Stroud, and it's going to show, unfortunately, a lot this week. Another receiver I don't like this week is Terry McLaurin versus the Jets. McLaurin had a great game last week, which is phenomenal. Those are what you're looking for out of him. Unfortunately, that's far and few between this season for him. He hasn't played consistently enough, and a lot of it's obviously I think the offensive scheme. Howell hasn't played as well, at least getting him the targets. Like, he's done well with other receivers like Curtis Samuel. Dotson's had some few games here or there, but Terry McLaurin's kind of an afterthought a lot of times, which worries me, especially against a defense that outside of the Miami Dolphins, the Jets are actually pretty good against wide receivers. They're only allowing 12.9 points a game. And again, have yet to allow a touchdown to a receiver that is outside of their division. Like, they've allowed some touchdowns to the Bills and, Miami Dolphin receivers, but outside of that, zero. Like, this is a tough game for McLaurin. This could be a tough game for the Commanders in general. I think Jets defense pulls off a nice little win because I think they're going to be the reason this team keeps it together. Now, the last receiver I'm sitting is going to be Cooper Kupp versus the Saints. Now, if you guys looked at my obvious, I did have Puka Nacua in there. I think Puka Nacua should start in your lineups, and I think you might have to with Cooper Kupp, but I have lower expectations than I do with Puka. Look, this defense for the Saints have actually done a really good job holding wide receivers to only, I think the last few games, 12.1 all season. Last 5 games, they've only allowed 1 touchdown, which has been really good. Cooper Kupp has had some back-to-back games of over 20 points, which has been great. But I think with Lattimore possibly covering Kupp, which Lattimore's played defensively amazing almost every single year when he's out there. And on top of that, I think Puka's going to get a lot of the value. I do think Kyren Williams going to have to have some kind of good game. Again, both these teams are trying to fight for a potential playoff spot. It's really tough, but they're on the outside looking in. I just worry about Cooper Kupp. I think they're going to put a lot of focus on him, try to shut him out. I think Puka does take advantage and has a successful game, but Kupp is the one I'm worried about. Now, my sleeper, DJ Moore versus the Cardinals. And maybe he's not a sleeper to you, but I know he's had some struggles. He didn't play great last week, but Cardinals have allowed an average of 18.6 points a game, and DJ Moore is averaging 20.4 points when Justin Fields is his quarterback. Outside of that, he has had some issues. This is a game I'm actually looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the matchup of Kyler Murray and Fields. Defensively, both teams struggle, so it's going to be, I think, actually a potentially high-scoring game where both teams are going to be fighting back and forth, trying to put up points. I think DJ Moore is going to have some success. You could even put Marquise Brown if, again, there's some health concerns, but he could potentially have some success, but I do worry that the cornerback Johnson for the Bears actually does a really good job. So again, that's why I like DJ Moore a lot more this week. I think he's going to have a great matchup. So those are my start sits and sleepers for the wide receiver position. If you guys have questions for your lineups, I know that's really tough. I will give you the best advice I can based off stats and opportunities. If you guys haven't already, again, check out our other start and sit videos. Smash that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the like button. Share this with league mates, not the team you're going against, but your league mates as well to help them out. And I'll check you guys out next time.